Master Chief Ryan Patterson asked with a condescending smile as he watched a young woman in civilian clothes walk onto the restricted SEAL training range at Naval Base Coronado. This area is for qualified military personnel only. The 12 SEAL operators chuckled as they watched her approach their sacred firing line, but none of them knew that in exactly 8 minutes she would shatter a marksmanship record that had stood untouched for 10 years. Lieutenant Emma Ghost Sullivan walked quietly across the shooting range at Naval Base Coronado. Her civilian clothes and unassuming demeanor made her appear completely out of place among the elite SEAL operators. At 27 years old, she was officially visiting the facility as part of an inter-service cooperation program, though the SEAL team had no idea what her actual qualifications were. The Coronado Range was legendary in military circles, a state-of-the-art facility where the Navy's most elite warriors honed their marksmanship skills. The walls were covered with photographs of famous SEAL operations, record-breaking shots, and the names of operators who had achieved legendary status through their precision shooting. Master Chief Patterson continued with the authority of someone who had spent 15 years turning ordinary soldiers into elite warriors. Behind him, 12 SEAL operators were preparing for their weekly marksmanship competition, a tradition that had been running continuously for over a decade. The competition centered around one particular achievement: Patterson's legendary 1,200-meter shot made exactly 10 years ago during perfect weather conditions. The shot had become mythical within SEAL circles, representing the absolute pinnacle of precision marksmanship that their facility could produce. Petty Officer Marcus Kane asked with barely concealed amusement as he set up his Barrett Mate 201 on the precision shooting rest, suggesting she visit the gift shop back at the main building. Staff Sergeant David Brooks nodded toward the observation area with obvious dismissal, explaining that this was advanced tactical training, involving weapons that required extensive certification and years of experience. Chief Warrant Officer Tyler Coleman chuckled as he adjusted his rifle scope, telling her she was about to see some of the finest marksmanship in the military. Emma surveyed the range setup with quiet interest. The shooting positions were perfectly engineered with concrete benches, precision rests, and advanced targeting equipment. But what caught her attention was the reverent way the SEAL operators discussed Patterson's 10-year-old record shot. Patterson announced with obvious pride that the legendary shot had required perfect weather conditions, perfect equipment alignment, and perfect execution, with everything having to be absolutely flawless. Kane lined up behind his Barrett rifle, his movements practiced and confident. Every SEAL who came through the facility tried to equal the chief's record, and most did not even come close. Brooks explained that it was not just about marksmanship, but about understanding atmospheric conditions, calculating environmental variables, and maintaining psychological control under pressure. Emma watched the preparations with professional interest, noting the wind flags positioned at intervals along the range, the sophisticated weather monitoring equipment, and the computerized ballistic calculators the operators were using. Kane announced he was ready, his breathing controlled and his stance textbook perfect. The Barrett M82A1 fired with a sound like thunder, its .50 caliber bullet racing toward the distant target at nearly 3,000 feet per second. Through the high-powered spotting scope, the range officer called out the result: approximately 4 inches low and 2 inches left. Kane shook his head with professional disappointment, noting that the wind had shifted just as he fired. Brooks took his position next, making final adjustments to his scope based on Kane's near miss. His shot was equally professional, equally close, but equally unsuccessful, landing high and right by 6 inches. Coleman stepped up for his attempt, his confidence bolstered by the precise feedback from the previous shots. His bullet impacted even closer to the target center, 3 inches high but dead on for windage, the best shot of the day so far. One by one, the SEAL operators took their attempts at Patterson's legendary target. Each shot demonstrated exceptional skill and training, and each near miss proved the difficulty of the challenge, but none found their mark. After 12 attempts by 12 elite operators, The 1,200-meter record remained unbroken. Patterson observed that the tough conditions were why the record had stood for 10 years. Noting that everything had to be absolutely perfect, the equipment, the conditions, the shooter, and a little bit of luck. Emma had been watching each attempt carefully, noting the wind patterns, observing the mirage effects from heat rising off the desert floor, and calculating the environmental factors that were causing the consistent near misses. What she saw told her that the conditions were actually quite good for long-range shooting, but the operators were making subtle errors in their environmental calculations. She spoke quietly, her voice barely carrying across the range. Asking if she could try a shot herself, the reaction was immediate and predictable. Kane looked at her with obvious amusement, explaining that the rifle was a .50 caliber precision weapon and not exactly beginner-friendly equipment. Brooks nodded with patient condescension, warning that these weapons required significant upper body strength just to hold steady and that the recoil could cause serious injury if someone was not properly prepared. But Emma was already walking toward the Barrett rifle with movements that suggested familiarity rather than curiosity. Patterson said with growing concern that the weapon system required an extensive safety briefing. But Emma picked up the 35-pound rifle like it was a standard carbine. Examining the scope settings and checking the chamber with obvious expertise, someone whispered in disbelief, watching her handle the massive weapon with complete confidence. Patterson asked carefully whether she had used Barrett systems before. Emma replied that she had used them some, already settling into a shooting position that was textbook perfect according to military precision shooting doctrine. The SEAL operators gathered behind her, their amusement replaced by genuine curiosity as they watched her prepare with movements that suggested extensive training. Emma asked quietly which target she should aim for. Kane suggested the 600-meter target first, assuming she would need to work up to longer ranges. Emma looked at the 600-meter target, then shifted her aim toward the 1,200-meter target that had defeated 12 elite operators that morning, saying she would like to try the record shot if that was acceptable. The silence that followed lasted exactly 5 seconds. Patterson said slowly that it was an extremely difficult shot, and that professional SEAL operators with years of experience struggled with that target. Emma replied that she understood, already making scope adjustments based on her observations of the previous attempts. Brooks stepped forward with obvious concern, warning that the psychological pressure of attempting a legendary shot could affect even experienced marksmen and that there was no shame in starting with closer targets. But Emma was already in position, her breathing controlled, her stance perfect, and her eye aligned with the scope in a shooting position that demonstrated years of advanced training. The SEAL operators watched in fascination as she made final adjustments to the rifle scope, compensating for environmental factors with a precision that suggested extensive ballistic knowledge. She announced quietly that she was ready. The range fell silent except for the sound of wind flags fluttering and the distant hum of air conditioning units. The Barrett M82A1 fired with devastating precision. 1,200 meters away, Patterson's legendary target exploded in a cloud of dust and debris. Complete silence filled the training range. Coleman began to speak but was unable to finish his sentence. The spotter announced a confirmed hit at 1,200 meters. Dead center, a perfect shot, and the record equaled. The SEAL operators stared at Emma with expressions ranging from amazement to outright shock. The 10-year range record had just been equaled by a visiting officer they had assumed was a tourist. Patterson said slowly, his voice carrying a mixture of respect and professional curiosity, asking what exactly her military specialty was. Emma smiled quietly as she safed the rifle and told them she was in counter-sniper operations with the 75th Ranger Regiment, and that she was actually there to brief their team on an urgent mission before anyone could respond. Emergency alarms began screaming across the naval base. Red alert lights flashed throughout the facility as Commander Sarah Hayes burst onto the range, her face grim with urgency. She shouted over the sirens for all SEAL personnel to report for immediate deployment, announcing that there were American hostages in hostile territory and that the mission briefing was starting immediately. The casual atmosphere died instantly as 12 SEAL operators snapped to attention, their competitive shooting forgotten in the face of a real-world crisis. Patterson asked immediately, shifting from range instructor to combat leader. What the situation was, Hayes announced with deadly seriousness that a terrorist organization had captured 12 American relief workers in Afghanistan. Intelligence indicated they were being held in a mountain compound with sophisticated defenses and multiple sniper positions. Emma stepped forward with professional authority, identifying herself as Lieutenant Sullivan of the 75th Rangers and stating that she was the designated counter-sniper specialist for the operation. Hayes confirmed this, explaining that Lieutenant Sullivan would be providing long-range fire support and eliminating enemy snipers during the extraction. Kane looked at Emma with new understanding and growing respect, realizing she was there for the Afghan mission. Emma confirmed this, her soft voice now carrying the authority of proven competence. She explained that the terrorists had positioned at least 8 sniper teams in elevated positions around the compound and that standard SEAL assault tactics would result in significant casualties unless those positions were neutralized first. Patterson studied Emma with the professional assessment of someone who had just witnessed exceptional shooting, asking how she planned to engage 8 enemy snipers positioned at unknown ranges in mountainous terrain. Emma looked at the Barrett M82A1, still warm from her record-breaking shot, and replied that she would do what she had just done, but with targets that shot back in terrain that did not cooperate. 3 hours later, 4 MH-60 Black Hawk helicopters lifted off from Naval Base Coronado carrying SEAL Team 6 toward the most dangerous hostage rescue mission of their careers. Emma Sullivan sat in the lead aircraft with her custom Barrett rifle across her knees, surrounded by SEAL operators who now understood they were working with someone truly exceptional. The flight to the Afghan compound took 6 hours over hostile territory, crossing international borders and flying through airspace controlled by forces that would shoot down American aircraft on sight. Through her night vision equipment, Emma could see the target facility nestled in a valley between 2 mountain ridges, a fortified compound surrounded by natural defensive positions that provided perfect cover for enemy snipers. The mission briefing over their headsets stated that the primary objective was hostage extraction and the secondary objective was elimination of terrorist leadership, with intelligence confirming that 12 American relief workers were being held in the central building. As they approached the valley, the mission commander provided tactical updates, noting that enemy sniper positions had been identified at 8 locations, with ranges varying from 600 to 1,400 meters, and that these positions had to be neutralized before SEAL teams could approach the compound. Emma studied the terrain through her advanced scope, identifying each enemy position and calculating the environmental factors that would affect her shots. The mountain location created complex wind patterns, the altitude affected atmospheric pressure, and the darkness limited visibility even with night vision equipment. The pilot announced they were 6 minutes from target. Emma began her preparations, checking her equipment and running through the sequence of shots that would clear the way for the SEAL assault. 8 enemy snipers were positioned at varying ranges and elevations, all waiting to kill American rescuers. The update came that they were 2 minutes from optimal firing position. Through her scope, Emma could see the first enemy sniper position, a rocky outcrop at approximately 800 meters where an enemy marksman was scanning the sky for incoming aircraft. With 30 seconds to engagement range, Emma controlled her breathing and settled into the perfect shooting position, her rifle steady despite the helicopter's movement. She reported over the radio that she was in position for sniper elimination. What happened next became legend in SEAL Team 6 history. Emma's first shot eliminated the enemy sniper covering the main approach route before he could fire on the helicopters. Her second shot took out the marksman positioned to engage landing aircraft. Her third shot neutralized the sniper who had been assigned to prevent hostage movement. Her fourth shot eliminated an enemy sniper who was repositioning to engage the SEAL teams. Her fifth shot took out the marksman covering the compound's rear exit. Her sixth shot neutralized a sniper who had been coordinating enemy defensive fire. Her seventh shot eliminated the enemy's most dangerous marksman, positioned at 1,400 meters with a clear field of fire across the entire valley. Her eighth shot took out the final sniper, clearing all enemy overwatch positions and leaving the compound defenseless against SEAL assault tactics. 8 enemy snipers had been eliminated in less than 3 minutes from a moving helicopter at ranges exceeding 800 meters. Emma reported with characteristic calm that all sniper positions had been neutralized, and that SEAL teams had clear approach vectors. The helicopter assault proceeded flawlessly. Without enemy sniper coverage, the terrorist defenders were quickly overwhelmed by SEAL tactics, training, and firepower. All 12 American hostages were rescued without casualties, and the terrorist leadership was eliminated during the flight home. Master Chief Patterson approached Emma with expressions of awe and professional respect, telling her that what she had accomplished that night, eliminating 8 moving targets from a helicopter in combat conditions, was not just exceptional marksmanship but a redefinition of what was possible. Kane nodded emphatically, still processing what he had witnessed, saying that the range record that morning had been impressive, but that combat shooting like that was legendary. Brooks studied Emma with obvious curiosity, asking where she had learned to shoot like that and noting that her technique was unlike anything they had seen. Emma cleaned her rifle with the same methodical precision she had shown throughout the day, explaining that the 75th Rangers taught precision shooting under adverse conditions, including mountains, helicopters, and combat stress, and that they trained for all of it. Back at Naval Base Coronado, the mission debriefing focused as much on Emma's shooting performance as on the successful hostage rescue. Commander Hayes announced to the assembled SEAL team that Lieutenant Sullivan had eliminated 8 enemy snipers from distances and conditions that most marksmen would consider impossible, and that her performance had enabled the successful completion of a mission that intelligence assessments had rated as having less than a 30% chance of success. The briefing room was filled with SEAL operators, support personnel, and senior officers who had come to understand what had happened during the Afghan mission. Emma sat quietly in the front row, still wearing her tactical gear, while Hayes presented satellite imagery and shot analysis of her performance. Master Chief Patterson stood up slowly, his attitude completely transformed from the man who had dismissed her as a tourist 12 hours earlier. He told her that what she had accomplished that day went beyond exceptional marksmanship, and that she had enabled the rescue of 12 American civilians while completing a mission that had been considered nearly impossible. The room erupted in applause, something Emma had never expected when she had arrived for what was supposed to be a routine inter-service visit. Kane stepped forward with obvious admiration, saying that her range performance that morning had been impressive, but that her combat shooting that night was legendary, and asking if she could train their precision marksmen in her techniques. Emma's response was characteristically understated. She told the gentleman that every military branch had specialized skills, that Rangers focused on precision shooting under adverse conditions while SEALs focused on close-quarters combat and tactical assault, and that they all served the same mission. Patterson walked over to the range record board and made a notation beside the 1,200-meter entry. Next to his own name and 10-year-old achievement, he wrote that the record had been equaled by Lieutenant Sullivan of the 75th Rangers and that her combat performance had exceeded all expectations, but Emma was not finished demonstrating her capabilities. She asked the chief if she could try something before she left and returned to the shooting line with the Barrett. This time she was not aiming at the 1,200-meter target that had defined excellence at Coronado for a decade. She was aiming at an experimental target at 1,500 meters, a distance that no one had ever seriously attempted at the facility. Patterson said with genuine concern that the distance was beyond the theoretical maximum range for the facility and that the target was barely visible even through high-powered optics. Emma replied quietly that she would like to try anyway. making scope adjustments, with movements that suggested she had calculated the shot during her earlier observations. The SEAL operators gathered behind her, their casual observation replaced by intense professional interest. They were about to witness either spectacular failure or a shooting achievement that would surpass anything in their experience. Emma settled into the perfect shooting position, controlling her breathing and aligning her sight. Picture with the distant target that appeared as little more than a dot through her scope. The Barrett fired with its characteristic thunder. 1,500 meters away, the experimental target disintegrated in a cloud of dust and debris, visible even to the naked eye. Complete silence filled the training range as every person present processed what they had just witnessed. The spotter announced a confirmed hit at 1,500 meters, dead center, a new range record. The SEAL operators stared at Emma with expressions that had transformed from dismissal to amazement to something approaching reverence. Kane said slowly that the shot was beyond anything they had thought was possible at the facility. Brooks nodded with obvious respect, calling the 1,500-meter single shot not just marksmanship but legendary. 6 months later, the SEAL training facility at Coronado had been transformed under Emma's influence. Her shooting techniques were now standard curriculum for all SEAL precision marksmen, and her range records had inspired a new generation of long-range specialists. The range where she had shattered a 10-year record now featured multiple targets at distances previously considered impossible. With detailed training programs that taught Emma's environmental calculation methods and advanced shooting techniques. But more importantly, her tactical innovations were saving American lives in combat operations worldwide. SEAL teams, Army Rangers, and Marine units were successfully completing missions that had previously failed due to enemy sniper interference. Lieutenant Emma Ghost Sullivan had been assigned to a new special operations unit that specialized in counter-sniper operations across multiple theaters. Her perfect mission record included successful sniper elimination in 12 different countries, with enemy marksmen neutralized at ranges that redefined what American forces considered tactically possible. The woman they had dismissed as a lost tourist had become the most respected marksmanship instructor in the special operations community, proving that excellence can appear in unexpected places and that records exist only until someone with the right skills decides to break them. Her legacy lived on in every SEAL sniper who learned her techniques, in every successful mission completed with her fire support, and in every impossible shot that became possible because she had demonstrated what human precision could achieve. The Range Queen had arrived at Coronado for what everyone thought was a routine visit, but she had left behind a permanent transformation of what the world's most elite warriors believed was possible with the right training, the right equipment, and the right person behind the trigger. Sometimes the person you underestimate is the one who shows you what you have been missing. Sometimes the visitor you dismiss is the teacher you never knew you needed. And sometimes breaking a 10-year record is just the beginning of proving what true precision looks like when everything depends on making the impossible shot. Lieutenant Emma Sullivan had proven all of these truths with marksmanship that would be studied and emulated for decades to come.